Yo, welcome to another time-lapse video. I've got two different pages going here because both of these pages were relatively easy to do, to color. But just wanted to talk about a movie that I watched recently. Really, I don't watch any new movies anymore. Just kind of watch movies that have gone free on YouTube Movies. That's really what I watch. And one of the movies that did that was a movie that I watched when I was a young child, and it was called Nine. It was starring Elijah Wood and some other people. It was an animated movie, and it was kind of dark. I liked the tone and everything, but I have some thoughts on the movie that I like to talk about. So really, spoilers ahead for a really old movie. I think it came out like in 2000 or something, 2001. So old movie. But I will be spoiling it just because I can't really get into the criticism without talking about really what the whole premise of the movie is. So, one of the good things that this movie does is that it tells this backstory tastefully. It doesn't just jump into exposition. It tells a lot of this exposition in flashbacks and things like that. It reveals it pretty tastefully. However, I'm just gonna say what the basic themes are and the premise of it is. So essentially, there's this one scientist that is charged by the government to create an AI robot, basically that does machine learning and is able to create weapons for the government in order to fight in war. And so essentially, this scientist has made this robot and it's effective, right? It's able to, however, because it's machine learning, it doesn't have the ability to really see morality. So in the end, this robot winds up destroying everything living, be it plants, everything, plants, humans, animals. There is nothing living left in this world. So it's a post-apocalyptic world. Now, this same scientist regrets what he did and realizes that the only way to fix this is to try and create essentially these ragdoll robot-esque miniature little beings to essentially right all the wrongs, but they need to have human consciousness. So the way he does this is he gets this talisman and he's able to divide his own soul, I suppose, into 9 different pieces or parts, and put them in these different ragdoll people. So kind of interesting, right? So the movie premise is interesting. Now, the one criticism I have for this movie is really the way this movie winds up ending. The end bothers me. And really, when it comes to stories, the beginning is super important because it gives you the exposition of everything. It introduces you to the world. You need to be a technically really good writer in order to start a story, but in order to end it, you just have to be wise, right? And know what your story is about. The ending can just ruin an entire story. And I wasn't a huge fan of the ending of this movie. Here's how this movie ended. So eventually, what happens in this movie is this robot gets the ability to use this talisman that the old man used to divide his soul into these different ragdoll characters. And in so doing, it consumes the souls of the ragdoll characters, essentially killing them. However, one of the ragdoll characters says, no, the people, they're still trapped inside. The souls are still inside. They need to be released, right? And so, I'm sitting there thinking, well, if they're still in there, it kind of makes sense that you could extract those souls from the talismans and return them to their own bodies or new bodies, right? That kind of makes sense in a world where you can just move souls around like that. But instead, in the end, they just kind of release them as ghosts, like spirits, and they kind of like go up into the sky, almost like going to heaven. But then their souls make it so that it rains, and the rain it's implied that the rain brings life back to the earth. And it's interesting because I became very cognizant of, you know what, my Christian worldview informs the way that I feel about the ending of this movie. Um, I believe that the human soul, now creation, God's very image is in creation, right? Um, who God is made plainly seen through creation. So God's creation is a reflection of him. And so therefore to ruin his creation or to pollute or things like that would be immoral according to scripture. However, I would say a human life, if you can preserve human life, the human soul is eternal. The earth, by comparison to the human soul, will pass away. So the human soul is more important. Now, from a naturalistic worldview, the earth is more important because the earth gave birth to humankind and all life. And so I realized, you know what? I do not appreciate this movie nearly as much as I would if I was a naturalist, right? So that was kind of an interesting little moment there. Our worldview informs what we like, what we appreciate, what we gravitate towards. Now, really quickly, I want to talk about the character designs in this story, which is really, I think, the highlight of this movie. All these characters, if you have the same silhouette of character, it's really hard to make each of these characters distinct, but they're very clever about how they give the little minute details, and these details kind of inform who these characters are, even though, for the most part, all these characters have the same build. They use different materials, they use different like scars on these different characters to make them look unique, different, and special, give them their own voice, give them their own presence. And I really like character design. Character design is one of my favorite things to do ever. And it's very important to design your characters properly if you're going to tell your story very well. So those are my thoughts on the movie Nine. What are your thoughts? Thanks for listening, and God bless. See you guys later.